Thank you all very much. It does seem a bit odd for me to be appearing on a platform with the name Gove on it, because I wasn't born Michael Gove. I was born Graham Logan, 51 years ago, to a mother I never knew. I was taken away from her at birth and spent the next 4 months of my life in care, before I was adopted by my mum and dad, Ernie and Christine Gove. I remember my mum telling me about my adoption. "Son," she said, "you didn't grow under my heart, you grew in it." They gave me love, total, absolute, and unstinting. And as a result of their sacrifices, I'm here today, the first member of my family ever to have the chance to go to university, and someone privileged to have worked with 2 great prime ministers in 3 great government departments. And being adopted, I've always remembered one thing: how fragile life can be, how much depends on chance. And that's why I'm in politics, because I want to give every individual the opportunity to succeed. I don't want to leave their fate or destiny to chance. I believe that every individual has something unique to offer, and I want to give them the chance to be author of their own life story. And in particular, I want to make sure that we give opportunities and a voice to those in our undervalued communities and our overlooked families. What do I mean by that? Well, when I became Shadow Education Secretary in 2007, I had a look at the school league tables. There was one school I saw which I might have gone to if I hadn't been adopted, where out of an entire generation of children in one particular year, only one got the 5 good GCSEs that are a passport to success in the future. And I thought, what if I'd gone to that school? What would my future have been? What would my chances have turned out to be? And at that point, I vowed, if I ever become Education Secretary, I will make it my mission to make sure that every child has the opportunities I've enjoyed. Every child can fulfill their full potential. Now, I won't deny it was a struggle at first when I was Education Secretary. Testing, certainly. But with the help of an amazingly talented team of ministers, we pushed through change. We opened new free schools and new academies. We restored rigour to the curriculum. We made our exams more testing. And we also ensured that every child had the stock of knowledge and the skills that they needed to make a success of their life. And you know what? Now we have 1.9 million more children in good and outstanding schools as a result of Conservative reforms. And it was that belief in using the power of government to help every individual that I took with me to the Department of Justice when I worked there as Secretary of State. My view, like Winston Churchill when he was in charge of our prison system, is that there is a treasure in the heart of every man. So I set about with the same reforming zeal. I made sure that we reformed prison education, that we got the most talented graduates from our universities to become prison officers, that we made our criminal justice system more efficient, and we put the interests of the victim first. And that same set of values I took with me when I became Environment Secretary. Our planet is in peril. I don't want to leave the Earth, which is our common home, to our next generation in a state which is dirtier, dangerous, and less beautiful. So I've taken action to cleanse our rivers, to sweep the plastic pollution out of our seas, to make sure that our air is safe to breathe, to safeguard wildlife all over the world, to improve the welfare of animals, to fight climate change, to ensure that our fishermen have the opportunity to fish sustainably in a sea of opportunity, and to ensure that our farmers are at last properly rewarded for all the work that they do. It's been a privilege to have had the chance to serve in those 3 government departments alongside 2 great Prime Ministers. And I just want to take this opportunity to say a special thank you to David Cameron and Theresa May for giving me the chance to serve. And can we thank them for their distinguished service? But the next leader faces a particular challenge, bigger than perhaps any that's been faced before, and that is delivering Brexit. And for me, this is unashamedly personal. I made a decision to join the campaign to leave the European Union. More than that, I made the decision, and it wasn't easy, to appear under the heat of the studio lights in the television debates with the people who would decide making the case for Brexit. I led from the front. And I knew in so doing that I would be putting friendships at risk and my family under strain. But I did it for one reason. I believed that this was the right thing to do at a critical moment in our history. My family know what it's like to face the costs of being in the European Union. My dad's fish processing business, which his grandfather worked so hard to set up, went to the wall in the 1980s as a result of the common fisheries policy. I know that in my part of Scotland, coastal communities were hollowed out. People lost their jobs. Dreams died as a result of the EU. But it wasn't just in Scotland. As we discovered during the referendum, there were people in overlooked families and in undervalued communities across this country who were crying out for their voice to be heard. And heard it was when 17.4 million people voted for us to leave the European Union, more than have ever voted for any proposition in the history of our democracy. And it is all about democracy. Why did those communities feel undervalued? Why did those families feel unheard? The truth is, because so many of the decisions that govern our daily lives were taken by people in distant committee rooms, whom they'd never elected, couldn't get rid of, and whose policies they could not change. Britain's given so many great things to the world, but perhaps the greatest of all is parliamentary democracy. But our parliamentary democracy doesn't give the fullest expression to the most important thing in politics, which is the accountability of power to the people, when we have systems like we've had in the European Union. That's why it's so important that we do leave and honour that mandate. But 3 years on from that vote, we still haven't left. People feel exasperated, scunnered, as we say in Scotland. Well, I feel that exasperation and that frustration deeply every day. Why haven't we left? Well, I think there are 2 reasons. I think that some of the people involved in this negotiation haven't really believed in Brexit. I think some of them have felt that this was a problem to be managed, rather than an opportunity to be grasped. But do you know what? It's not enough just to believe in Brexit. You've also got to be able to deliver it. And one of my concerns, when I was out of government and on the backbenches, was that we triggered Article 50 without a proper plan for Brexit. Well, I have a proper plan to deliver Brexit. I will ensure there is a full stop to the backstop. I will ensure that we negotiate a Canada-style free trade agreement with the European Union and new free trade deals across the globe. I will ensure that we are out of the common agricultural policy, out of the common fisheries policy, out of the court, out of the Commission, out of the Parliament, out of the EU, and once more taking back control of our money, our borders, and our laws. Now, it's not going to be easy. Nothing worthwhile ever is. There will be challenges and tough moments ahead. But I've faced challenges and tough moments throughout my political career. But if we make a success of Brexit, then this wonderful country can be the best in the world in so many ways. We can be the best country in the world for education and science. The best country in the world to start, grow and run a business. The best country in the world to raise a family. The best country in the world to love and live as you wish, and to celebrate the diversity, the generosity, and the sheer abundant talent that we all have. How do we do it? We do it by bringing people together. And in particular, bringing people together in those overlooked families and undervalued communities who were at the heart of the Brexit vote. How would I begin? Well, I would begin by strengthening the United Kingdom. We need to ensure that there is additional spending that the UK government devotes to Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, so everyone appreciates the benefit of the strength that the unity of our kingdom provides. But more than that, we need to make sure that every policy that is passed in Westminster is good for the United Kingdom. We need to make sure that there is a dedicated powerhouse at the heart of government, putting the United Kingdom first in everything that we do. I'm a unionist to my bootstraps. How could I be otherwise? I was born in Scotland. I worked in Northern Ireland. I married a woman from Wales. And last year, I even supported England in the World Cup. So in the far more important match last night, I was supporting Scotland. As well as strengthening our United Kingdom, we also need to have a big, bold, radical, pro-business economic plan which ensures that those overlooked families and undervalued communities are at the heart of everything that we are doing. So that's why I've said we should look at VAT and potentially introduce a new sales tax, because VAT is a regressive and complicated tax that hits the poor hardest. It's also why I believe that when we make income tax cuts, those income tax cuts should work with universal credit to help the poor who are in work to take more home. One thing I will never do as Prime Minister is to use our tax and benefits system to give the already wealthy another tax cut. I believe in low taxes and pro-enterprise policies, but the poor must come first. Something else that I will do in order to back business and to revitalise many of those undervalued and overlooked communities, I will abolish business rates for the small and medium-sized enterprises that are at the heart of our high streets. Every town deserves to have a healthy and beating heart, and the Conservative government will make sure there is a transfusion which allows that. There's something else that we need to do for those overlooked families and undervalued communities, and that is invest properly and reform properly in education. One of the things that I will do is to restore per pupil funding for every child in our schools. But much more than that. The world of work is changing. New technologies, artificial intelligence, robotics, machine learning, gene editing, they could lead to this country becoming the forcing house of innovation in the future. There are tremendous opportunities, but there are also challenges, because as the world of work changes, some of the traditional jobs that so many have enjoyed will disappear. So we need to help people in education, not just at the beginning of their life, but in the middle of their career. And I will ensure that we make lifelong learning a reality by allowing people in mid-career, in many of those towns that need new skills and new investment, to retrain to take advantage of all of the opportunities of the future. And I'll create institutes of technology with high-quality vocational education in every town. And I will work with American universities to ensure that they can open new campuses here to extend innovation and to emphasise that we are a country open to talent. There are other changes that we need to make about how we spend public money as well, though. The Treasury in the past has tended to look at public spending and not always ask, how can we maximise economic growth? Working with a great team of Treasury ministers, I will make sure that every pound we spent is dedicated to improving economic growth. And that means transport infrastructure that can connect the North, the Midlands and the South West more effectively than ever before. It also means making sure that we have a 5G infrastructure which is safe for this country, and also one which ensures that every community in this country can be connected. It also means, when we're thinking about infrastructure, housing. Conservatives should always believe that everyone has the right to own their own home. And to pass it on to the next generation, which is why I will ensure that we reform planning laws in order to ensure that more houses are built. I will tackle some of the abuses of the big volume house builders who are not releasing land in the way that they should. I will make it easier for communities to build beautiful homes in the way they want, on the sites they want. I will ensure as we did in the 1980s, another great home-owning revolution happening in our country. But of course, it's not just opportunity that people need, it's security as well. That's why I will ensure that our NHS is fully funded, properly funded, and that funding is underpinned by legislation in the future. And it's also why I will introduce a system of social care, of insurance, supported by the state, which will ensure that never again are people in fear that as the terrible shadow of dementia falls on their relatives' lives, that they may lose their home and their future may be uncertain. Those who've given so much for our country deserve security at the end of their lives. Security also means looking at the way in which our police operate as well. One of the problems with our police is that increasingly, so much of their time is devoted to pursuing crime online, and sometimes even ludicrously, pursuing people who use their free speech on Twitter to say what they oughtn't to say. Now, in recent days, I've actually been tempted to support the police using their powers to stop some people on Twitter operating their right of free speech. But local communities deserve local police that are concentrating on local priorities. So I will create a new national cyber crime task force to ensure that local police do what they should, respond to local people's desire to make sure that local priorities come first. You can't talk about security, and indeed you can't talk about overlooked families and undervalued communities without thinking about those who provide the greatest security for us. One particular undervalued community, one group of overlooked families, and that is those who serve in uniform in our Army, Navy and Air Force and their families. We owe so much, as we were reminded just last week, to those who wear the Queen's uniform and who give everything for us. But recently, it has been the case that those who have served this country so well have been pursued by money-grubbing lawyers on trumped-up charges so that their service is held in question and their service has a Damocles sword hanging over it. I think it is completely wrong that those who have given so much for this country don't have this country behind them. So I will make sure that we change the human rights law in order to make sure that our soldiers are protected from those lawyers who do not have the interests of our country at heart in the way that those soldiers always have. And I will make sure that we have a dedicated Minister for Veterans to make sure that we protect those who have protected us. So on Brexit, on the economy, on housing, on infrastructure, on education, on health, on social care, I have ideas. But it's not enough for the new leader, the next leader of this country, to have ideas. These are serious times. We need a serious leader. The stakes couldn't be higher, the consequences couldn't be greater if we get this wrong. I don't want us to have a situation where we have Jeremy Corbyn in Downing Street, propped up by Nicola Sturgeon, breaking up our United Kingdom, inflicting Marxist economics on this nation, and blighting our children's future. That is why, at this time, we need someone who has been tested in the heat of battle, someone who is prepared to go under the studio arc lights in order to make the case for conservatism, someone who will take on Jeremy Corbyn at the dispatch box, not hide in their bunker. Now, I have had the opportunity in 3 government departments to show that I can bring people together in order to drive change. I've had the opportunity to show that with attention to detail, a passion to reform, a mission to deliver, that people's lives can be transformed for the better. And I have always taken the opportunity on every platform to make the case for the conservative values that have made our party great and our country strong. And that is why I am now ready to unite, ready to deliver, ready to lead.